145% is very high, and it won't be that high. It's not going to be that high. It got up to there. We were talking about fentanyl, where, various elements built it up to 145. No, it won't be anywhere near that high. It'll come down substantially, but it won't be zero. It used to be zero. We were just destroyed. China was taking us for a ride, and just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. We're going to be very good to China, have a great relationship with President Xi, but they would make billions and billions and billions of dollars a year, and they would build their military out of the United States and what they made, so that won't happen, but they're going to do very well.
各国正当权益，这种典型的单边主义、保护主义、经济。
U.S. President Donald Trump said on Thursday that the U.S. and China have been in trade talks after Beijing denied any negotiations on tariffs. During a meeting with Norway's Prime Minister at the White House, Trump told reporters that his officials had a meeting with their Chinese counterparts on Thursday morning.
Well, they had a meeting this morning, so I can't tell you. It doesn't matter who they is. We may reveal it later, but they had meetings this morning, and we've been meeting with China.
Earlier, China's foreign ministry denied Trump's assertion that the two sides were involved in active negotiations.
这些都是假消息。据我了解，中美双方并没有就关税问题进行磋商或谈判，更谈不上达成协议。
The Chinese comments came after Trump said Tuesday that the final tariff rate on China's exports would come down substantially from the current 145%. The trade war has raised fears of a global economic slowdown, with the International Monetary Fund (IMF) slashing its 2025 growth forecast from 3.3% to 2.8%.
Boeing has confirmed that its Chinese customers are to take delivery of new jets as tariffs raise prices. Speaking Wednesday, Chief Executive Kelly Ortberg said many airlines in China now won't accept deliveries. Two 737 MAX jets which had been ferried to the country returned to the US last week. Then on Thursday, a third new plane, slated for Air China, started making its way back. Reports by Bloomberg last week claimed that Beijing has actually ordered carriers not to accept new planes. It all could be a big headache for Boeing, with China accounting for about 10% of its airliner order backlog. The company had been due to deliver about 50 new planes to the country just this year. However, Ortberg says Boeing can find solutions. He says unwanted jets can easily be diverted to new customers, since the air travel sector currently faces a global shortage of new planes. Even so, Donald Trump's sweeping global tariffs spell chaos for the industry. Airliners had been traded free from all duties under a global agreement dating back to 1979. While Washington has now signalled a willingness to de-escalate the dispute, analysts say confusion over tariffs could leave many aircraft orders in limbo. Earlier this month, Delta Airlines said it would defer all deliveries of jets from Airbus while the trade war lasted. Chief Executive Ed Bastian said Trump's 20% duty on imports from Europe meant the math didn't work. The new dispute is also terrible timing for Boeing, which was only just recovering from a near 5-year freeze on exports of its 737 MAX jets to China. That followed restrictions imposed by Beijing after 2 fatal crashes involving the type.
Condannare una persona così è peccato. Criminalizzare le persone di tendenza omosessuale è una ingiustizia.
This is Fresh Air. I'm Terry Gross. There is a very dark part of the Catholic Church's history that has only recently come to the attention of the public. For more than a century, the Church financed its expansion and its institutions with the profits from the enslaved people the Church bought and sold. Without the enslaved, the Catholic Church in the United States as we know it today would not exist, writes my guest, Rachel Swarns. She says the priests prayed for the salvation of the souls of the people they owned, even as they bought and sold their bodies. In 1838, the Jesuits sold 272 enslaved people, which helped save what is now Georgetown University from bankruptcy and helped stabilize the Jesuits in Maryland. In 2016, Swarns wrote an article published on the front page of the New York Times, headlined, 272 slaves were sold to save Georgetown. What does it owe their descendants? Rachel Swarns' new book expands on that article and tells the story of the Church's history of enslavement in America while illustrating the consequences by focusing on generations of one family that had several members among those 272 people sold by the Church in 1838. Two descendants of the family she writes about in the book found each other as a result of her New York Times article. She was a reporter at the Times for 22 years and is now a contributing writer on race and race relations. She directs the New York University initiative Hidden Legacies, Slavery, Race, and the Making of the 21st Century. Her new book is titled The 272, The Families Who Were Enslaved and Sold to Build the American Catholic Church. Rachel Swarns, welcome to Fresh Air. Thank you for writing this book. I learned so much from it. And I just want to emphasize, we're talking about people who were enslaved, who the Church bought and the Church sold. The Church did not free them, they sold them. What did the profits from slavery, the profits from the labor of the enslaved people and the sale of the enslaved people, what did that help the Jesuits fund and build?
I think the best way for me to answer that question is to tell you a quick story. And to do that, I need to bring you back to November of 1838, to Alexandria, Virginia. And if you had been there on a wharf that day, you would have seen scores of people being loaded onto a ship, forcibly loaded. Parents were clinging to their children. Babies were wailing. Witnesses described people falling to their knees, weeping, begging for mercy. These were enslaved people who had been sold and were being shipped down south, far from the people they loved and the world that they knew. And they had been owned and enslaved and sold by the nation's most prominent Catholic priests, who happened to be among the largest slaveholders in Maryland. And when times got hard, they did what people at the time did, which was to sell their assets. In this case, 272 men, women, and children who they sold to save the college that we now know as Georgetown University.
So getting back to what did this horrible sale of 272 people, what did the money go to? And even before that, how was slave labor and the sales of enslaved people, because this was not the first time that the Jesuits sold people they had enslaved, what did those profits help build for the Catholic Church in America?
That's right. So, yes. So the priests who built the early foundations of the Catholic Church relied on slave sales and slave labor to build, for instance, the first Catholic institution of higher learning, Georgetown College, now known as Georgetown University, the first archdiocese, the very first cathedral, priests who ran plantation and sold people, established the first Catholic seminary. So the very underpinnings of the church were built by priests who relied on slavery for their sustenance and to build and expand the institution that is now the largest religious denomination in the country.
Reading out of the book of 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. And we're going to start at verse 7 from the top. For the mystery of iniquity doth already work, only he who know, let until he be taken out of the way. And then shall that wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. Verse 9, even him whose coming is after the working of Satan with all power and signs and lying wonders. Verse 10, and with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they receive not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And for this cause God shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie. Giving all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Yahweh, Ba'ashem HaMashiach Yahushai, Ruha, Rakah, Kodash. Double honors to the mighty men, the elders, and the apostles in the community, waking up the lost sheep of the house of Israel in these last days. Peace and blessings to everyone teaching this truth in humbleness and in sincerity. Again, I'm going to say shalom. This is your brother Yalsop coming at you with another video. It's been an interesting week. Okay. You had the passing of Pope Francis. You have this increased tariff war. Okay, and it's going viral, as you can see in the videos. After this administration tried to bully their way with tariffs against China, now China's being the bully, and they're not taking any requests by President Trump, leaving the United States economy in turbulence. And it's judgment. It's the judgment of the Most High. And he's bringing down his wicked kingdom. Okay? You have that condition. And that's probably going to be the strength of the exhortation. But I want to talk about this so-called, what's this thing? The so-called Catholic system, how they played a huge role in the slavery of the children of the diaspora. And there's an audio that's a very telling tale about America. And the saddest thing is how people of color grieved, a system that's never fought for your reparations, that never will, by the way. But they do a good job keeping Jacob asleep. But I only did a 5-minute clip. That's a very long audio. I challenge you to listen to the entire audio when I make that post. Okay, you could go to that page and you can listen to the entire audio. It proves the United States of America is very hypocritical to people of color. Okay, how America, by way of its Catholic Church system, had its hand in the slavery of the children of Israel to this very day. And because 2 parts of our people don't know who they are, you see in the media display a lot of our people grieving an oppressive system. Okay? Let me see if there's anything else before I go into the scriptures. Yeah, it's basically going to be the tensions with China and America, the endless trade war, the endless tariff wars, okay, the collapsing of the economy is what's really happening. And it's only getting worse, but that's really, okay, that's the Most High. That's the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob just taking this wicked kingdom down. As the days go forward, as I've been pushing, now we're getting closer and closer to 250. It's going to get worse. It won't collapse completely, family. You have to remember that there's always going to be a sense of norm until Christ and the angels come through and really destroy this place, right? So let's read the book of Job 9 and 24. Let's read the book of Job 9 and verse 24. And it reads, "The earth is given into the hands of the wicked. He covered the faces of the judges thereof. If not, where and who is he?" And that manifests, man. You look at the passing of that Vatican, look how the majority of the people came out. Okay. But when I seen people of color going out, I'm like, and this is the same audience pushing the spiritual Israel doctrine as well, okay, via Christianity. That makes absolutely no sense. And when you go into the audio, it tells everything about your so-called Catholic system here in America and your so-called Vatican City. I always pose this question to anyone that believe in the doctrine of Christianity and that spiritual Israelite doctrine. If that's true, what justice really looks like for people oppressed all the time by racism, white supremacy. That's the question on the table all the time now. Because you can't say it's for everybody. Because if it's for everybody, there's no such thing as justice. Okay, justice is out the door. And that's the reality of this. Okay? But when Christ and the angels come, that'll be the day of the great correction. Right? It's a very interesting segment. And, it explains why the world deal with massive hurricanes and tornadoes and all types of weather phenomenons, because the true children of Israel, the people of the diaspora, were scattered abroad according to prophecy. Now, a great portion, Slakia, of the Israelites dwell in North America, but they're throughout the four corners of this earth, wherever mankind dwell. Okay? That's who Jesus Christ, okay, Hamashiach Yahushai, he's coming to save his people from oppression. Okay? It don't make sense for the oppressed and the oppressor to get deliverance together. That's not justice. That's what America teaches. And that's called confusion. Okay? America takes on that Babylonian vibration. Babal simply means confusion. And it is confusion to teach the Ku Klux Klan don't get the same salvation with the people that they have captured from 1492 to 2025 currently. That is confusion. And all praise to the Most High, we are watching the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob break up America as he began to break up ancient Egypt during the first Exodus. Based on the video accounts, family, it is over for America. That decline's only going to get worse. Let's get the classic. Let's go to the book of Exodus. Because a lot of people, they're wondering why the calamity isn't stopping and why America isn't great and why America's not going back to normal. Because the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is judging America. Okay? And the ultimate judgment is going to be nuclear destruction. Let's get Exodus chapter 21 and verse 16. And it reads, "And he that stealeth a man and selled him, or if he be found in his hand, he shall surely be put to death." And it's the United States of America, by way of their lawmakers, that tell the children of the diaspora, we don't have to worry about slavery. We're past that now. They even took it out to schools for the most part. And you got lawmakers. Okay, I'm always surface this now. You got lawmakers from God knows how long to today call brown people black. That's a hatred on us in itself. Okay? And all the mockery and slander against the Israelites, that's coming to an end. It's going to end when the prophecy in Revelation 17 be made manifest. When these nations turn on America and start sending them nuclear missiles over here. And the nuclear missiles is going to usher in the exodus of the children of Israel out of this wicked place called America, where they continue to oppress people of color. Okay? You got this hype. I believe a brother used self-defense against a so-called white guy, and there's a big case with that. And there was all types of race stories in America. Okay? We can't stay here, and we will never be at peace here. And there's not one Christian that could come in my comment board and tell me, according to the scriptures, God changed, which he didn't. I believe that's Malachi 3 and 6, is going to deliver his chosen people and save the oppressor. It's nowhere in the scriptures. And if you read, I believe that's Ezekiel 11, in Ezekiel the 20th chapter, you're going to run into a lot of problems. Because that's all future prophecy. Okay? Let's get Luke 1. Let's get Luke 1. And I want, y'all know what I want. We're going to go to Luke 1 and verse 68. We're going to get to the point. It says, "Blessed be the Lord God of Israel, for he had visited and redeemed his people and had raised up an horn of salvation for us in the house of his servant David, as he spake by the mouth of his holy prophets, which has since the world began." And that world is Isaiah 45:17 and John 3:16. That has nothing to do with saving racism, white supremacists that have their knee on the neck of the children of diaspora. It's not talking about that. Okay, and that's another strong delusion in its essence, to believe one verse. Okay, you isolate this, you apologetics, y'all isolate John 3:16. Y'all isolate that one verse and hide the rest of the Bible. Okay? Then teach you ain't got to keep the law. If violating the law caused the children of diaspora to fall, how not keeping the law is going to get them salvation? I give you a hint. You read Genesis, the 6th chapter. What happened when the sons of God transgressed? Didn't the creator of heaven and earth send a flood and damn near killed his entire creation with the exception of 8 people? That's going into the days of Noah. Right? When you go into the Peter's accounts, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob warned he's going to send another type of judgment, and it's going to be by fire. So it is required to keep these commandments. Okay? Tell you that at the end of the book, and I could pull so many verses, like Revelations 22 and 14. Okay? You have to keep these commandments. It says, blessed are they that do the commandments, that they enter into the city. Roughly paraphrasing. Okay, and that's the end of the book. That's the latter end of the oracle. So you can't say you don't have to keep the laws. I had these idiot Babylonians that say it's all in the mind. You don't have to do it no more. And through mercy and grace, you're going to get salvation. La'ah. You have to keep the commandments. Right? Let's read on. Luke 1 and verse 71. That we should be saved from our enemies and from the hand of all that hate us. Okay? And we know who controlled this world. Look at the war in Ukraine. Okay? And look at what happened to those babies.
Welcome back to CBS Mornings. Some of the most innocent victims of the war in Ukraine have only just been born. You were looking at some of the hundreds of infants born to Ukrainian surrogates who are now trapped by the fighting there, kept away from their biological parents, who are helpless to keep them safe as they anxiously watch the war from other countries. Charlie D'Agata spoke with the nurses keeping these little babies alive and with a couple who decided they just couldn't wait any longer.
They range in age from just a few days old to 5 months. 21 temporarily stranded surrogate babies, orphaned for now by the war raging above this makeshift basement bomb shelter, but not abandoned, looked after by an exhausted team of dedicated nurses, like Antonina Eufimovich.
Are you getting enough rest? You look very stressed.
Our rest is no more than 30 minutes or an hour. We can't take more time. A lot of babies crying.
They get a half an hour of sleep at a time. That's all the time. Day and night.
Yes. Ukraine is a global leader in surrogacy. When the war broke out, it became too dangerous for the biological parents to come get them. The Growing Families charity estimates as many as 800 couples are waiting for their babies, including those from America. Standing sentry outside, we find Chief Dr. Igor Pechenoga not in scrubs, but combat fatigues. We're in a war, he explains.
What are you telling the parents?
The truth, he says, what is happening here? The people are dying. Children are dying too. Not just soldiers, but also children. Mothers, sisters.
I think he's hungry.
Hecke and Gerhard Gottschalk from Bavaria, Germany, decided the risks of traveling into an active war zone outweighed the risks of leaving Leonard in one.
That's why you came.
We have no electricity, no water. That's very dangerous for our baby.
And it's so not the normal.
When now? Later, it's dangerous. It's more dangerous.
You thought, let's go and get there now.
Yes.
The rest of the newborns remain safe for now. But as the war worsens and advancing Russian artillery strikes the capital, how safe and for how long? For CBS Mornings, Charlie D'Agata, Kyiv, Ukraine.
Oh, man.
And with 21 babies, you know, there's always somebody crying. I just never thought about that part of the war.
No, I hadn't.
There's so many layers that you don't even think about that affect different people.
That's it. It's a reminder that the ripple effect of war has a multi-generational impact on the people that are fighting it.
Also, just how connected we are. You know, surrogates from all over the world. And imagine the first 5 months of your life. That's the oldest baby there in a basement under fluorescent lights, no leaves, no sunlight. It's hits you in a new way.
How much stimulation can you get? And we all know how important that is.
They're doing the best they can. I hope that nurse gets some relief.
Yeah.
The only silver lining is that the babies have no idea what is going on.
No.
Yeah.
Based on that count in this video. Okay. How is God blessing this world when you got 1 million+ troops dead from the Russia-Ukraine war? And look at those babies. What's going to happen to them? Okay. And what is your Vatican doing to stop that? I'm not talking about the one that's gone. But what are those guys doing? Right? There's no peace. And based on that video account, ain't nothing holy or righteous in that Vatican. No way. It's not a secret they had their hand in slavery going into the Israelites way before your America was set up post Christopher killing Columbus. Okay. God's not blessing this place. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is destroying this place. The economic system is done, and it ain't coming back. One expert said by summer, all the shelves will be empty. You know what that means. Martial law and the latter end. We see. Let's get Luke 1 and verse 72, Slakia. To perform the mercy promised to our fathers and to remember his holy covenant. You know what that covenant's about. Hebrews 8:8 through 11. We're not there yet. Reading on. Let's get more salvation real quick. Let's get a couple more. Let's read the classic in Isaiah 61:1. I'm almost done. It reads, the Spirit of the Most High God is upon me, because the Lord had anointed me to preach good tidings unto the meek. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and the opening of the prisons to them that are bound. Who's captive? We know our friends set up post-Balfour Declaration. They're not captives. Okay? And we also know, according to their own scholars and their own elders, they'll tell you in their encyclopedia, not only they're Romans, they'll tell you they go back into Edom. And that's from their own accounts. So they don't fit this bill of a people captive. Okay. But the bulk of them are your lawmakers. Okay. So-called black man who are brown people. So-called brown people. Time is running out. Okay. The clock is winding down for America. The clock is literally running out on the United States of America. And these days of exhortation videos, brothers standing on the corners. Okay, you got certain camps being persecuted in Africa and France. Okay, I'm gonna tell y'all something. The clock is running out on America, and you can tell based on all the accounts right now, it's not long before our deliverance is made manifest. I want to get Romans 9 real quick. I'm almost done. Let's get Romans 9. I want to go to the latter end of this chapter just to remind y'all what's about to happen. Okay, Romans 9 and verse 17. It says, for the scripture said unto Pharaoh, even for this same purpose have I raised thee up, that I might show my power in thee, and that my name might be declared throughout the earth. Okay. Therefore had he mercy on whom he will have mercy, and whom he harden. Remember, this is going back to the Exodus account. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob hardened Pharaoh's heart. Okay? And what happened when Pharaoh pursued the Hebrew Israelites in Exodus 15 and 3? He was destroyed. Now your lawmakers, okay, they're going to try to do it by way of draconian law, martial law, all types of sick decrees to break us up in these last days now, okay? Mind you, America's collapsing now. It's over. Their economic system is busted now, man. And there's no return from this. It's almost Exodus time for the children of Israel. Okay? And we got to be prepared to get out of here. The Lord's setting the so-called Dukes of Edom. He's setting them up for the kill as he set up the ancient Egyptians. Okay? That's happening now. So we won't be here much longer. And remember, America's entering to 250. It's over, folks. Okay, this thing is almost over. Romans 9. And we're going to go down to Slovakia. I want 9. We're going to get straight to the point. Romans 9 and 26. And it shall come to pass that, Slovakia from the top. And it shall come to pass that in the place where it was said unto them, ye are not my people, there shall they be called the children of the living God. Okay, there's another mirroring account, Slovakia. I believe that's Hosea. Okay. That's going to pan out very soon, folks. Because there's no more time. Very little time for the United States of America. Just based on that count, this place ain't coming back. Okay. Let's see if there's anything I left before I end this video. You know, for the elect, keep the commandments. Anyone following the Vatican, Christianity, okay, anti-Israelite groups, talking about you ain't got to walk in the laws and all this silliness and trying to live this world, you don't get jammed up, okay? It's coming to an end. Okay. Okay. For these high-minded Israelites that's trying to be a celebrity, don't do it. Don't get caught up in this world. Look what happened to that NFL player. The Lord told us not to intermingle. And his career is basically over. That's what happened when you make a, covenant with your enemy. When they want to make an example out of you, they don't hesitate to do that. Okay? This warning, and I'm on this video. Let's get we're gonna go to the classic in Revelations, the 18th chapter. Revelation chapter 18 and verse 2, and it reads, He cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, it's become the habitations of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. And those very nations basically turned on America over the tariff wars. And all those nations now are aligned with China, Russia, and Iran. And when they're done dealing with America, they're going to burn this place up prophetically. That goes back to your Revelation 17. Let's read on. Revelation chapter 18 and verse 4, this is the point. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, that you be not partakers of her sins, and that you receive not of her plagues. So if you're following the Vatican, Christianity, and these anti-Hebrew Israelite groups, you're going to die in these last days. You're going to be judged. Okay? Okay, all these groups talking about you ain't got to keep the commandments. You good as long as you believe. Well, that won't work. You can't serve two masters. You can't be lukewarm, right? I believe that's Revelation 3. Somewhere around there, you can't be lukewarm. Okay? A lot of these groups desire the day of the Lord. That's probably not a good idea if you're willfully walking in sin. Let's get one more, and I promise you I'm going to end it. Let's get, the book of Amos. Because if you're believing in these antichrist, anti-Hebrew Israelite groups, you're basically believing in death. And that's going to take you. Okay? Anyone desiring the day of the Lord, you're not walking in the commandments, it won't end well. We're going to end it here with the book of Amos, chapter 5 and verse 18. I'm going to read down to maybe verse 20. Amos 5 and 18, and it reads, Woe to you that desire the day of the Lord. To what end is it for you? The day of the Lord is darkness and not light, as if a man did flee from a lion, and a bear met him, or went into the house and leaned his hand on the wall, and a serpent bit him. Shall not the day of the Lord be darkness and not light, even very dark, and no brightness in it? And with that, I'm going to give all praise, honor, and glory to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Yahweh, Ba'ashima Mashiach, Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the mighty men, the elders, and the apostles in the community, waking up the lost sheep, the house of Israel in these last days. Peace and blessings to everyone doing this truth in humbleness, sincerity. Israel, I love y'all. We got next. Shalom, family.